what you have been misled to believe is racism isn't racism at all. Let me tell you who is practicing overt and covert racism towards Black Americans in the United States of America. It is the very people and the very entities that profess to be working on the behalf of Black Americans that are actually guilty of practicing racism towards Black Americans. The Democrat Party, liberals, progressives, Marxists, socialists, communists in America are leveraging Black Americans racially in order to secure what they need to secure for white liberals and homosexuals. White liberals in the Democrat Party and on the left are leveraging Black Americans in order to gain political power, wealth, and in order to push the agenda for homosexuals and white liberals. And I described this before, and I explained that this is the third civil rights movement, and the third civil rights movement has nothing to do with civil rights as it relates to Black Americans. In particular, because Black Americans have already obtained civil rights. So, under the guise of helping Black Americans to obtain civil rights, the Democrat Party, white liberals, homosexuals, liberals, progressives, will leverage Black Americans and their so-called fight for civil rights in order to actually gain political power, wealth, and preferential treatment for homosexuals and white liberals. And Black Americans have fallen for this hook, line, and sinker. They have swallowed the hook, the sinker, and the line. They have bought into this. Because they have been led to believe that the Democrat Party, that white liberals, the left, are working on their behalf to give them something that they don't believe that they have, but they actually already have. And that is civil rights, and that is equal opportunity, and that is an abundance of opportunity. Those three things currently exist for Black Americans in the United States of America. But they are lied to repeatedly by these white liberal professors in academia, by white liberal politicians in the Democrat Party, and so-called Black leaders who are benefiting from this same grand scheme. That would be the Jesse Jacksons. That would be the Al Sharptons. That would be all of the Black media people and Black pundits that are making a living off of selling the idea to Black Americans that they continue to be oppressed and that they continue to be void of civil rights. And what is very uncomfortable about this whole situation is the simple fact that all of this opportunity that exists and the fact that we already have civil rights, and in spite of that, these people have found a way to convince Black Americans that they don't have civil rights and that they don't have an abundance of opportunity in America. And they are leveraging that racial chip on the shoulder. They are leveraging that Black sensitivity towards race and racial issues in order to promote themselves, i.e. white liberals, the Black boule, and homosexuals. They are all exploiting Black Americans' sensitivity towards race. In 2026, there's no reason for Black Americans to have this sensitivity towards race. But because the Democrat Party, white liberals, and the Black power structure that sits under the white liberals, that sits under the Democrat Party, have convinced Black Americans that they are void of opportunity and civil rights. They have convinced them that there is this elaborate grand scheme taking place at their expense, and they have been convinced that it is being orchestrated by Republicans, conservatives. But the truth is, this grand scheme that has been and continues to be orchestrated was crafted, created, and implemented by white liberals, the Democrat Party, and the Black power structure on the left. And the only thing that Black Americans need to do is to wake up and smell the coffee and recognize that this grand scheme that has been and continues to be perpetrated against them was concocted by the Black liberal elite, the Black power structure on the left, white liberals, and homosexuals. Homosexuals first entered into this game and began to leverage Black Americans in the middle civil rights movement, which is the civil rights movement that most of you are aware of. And that would be the civil rights movement that you all identify with King. The first civil rights movement was the civil rights movement that was started by Frederick Douglass. That was the first civil rights movement in America.
School choice is the most expeditious means of exiting poverty and settling onto the path to wealth creation.
The middle civil rights movement is the one that you identify and associate with Martin Luther King. And the current civil rights movement isn't a real civil rights movement. It is an erroneous civil rights movement, crafted and created primarily by white liberals, with the support of the Black boule, the Black liberal power structure. And they created this grand scheme to leverage your racial identity and to leverage a lie about where you currently stand in America racially. And they have leveraged this to create power and wealth for themselves. That is the Democrat Party, white liberals, the Black power, structure on the left and homosexuals. And they continue to leverage this to their advantage, and you get nothing and nowhere from it. You get nothing. And the proof is in the pudding. Because all across America, in America's blue cities, and all of America's cities are, major cities are controlled by the Democrat Party. They are blue cities. And blacks continue to fall deeper and deeper into the abyss. So-called black culture continues to fall deeper and deeper into the abyss. In these blue cities, ran by the black liberal power structure, ran by the white liberal power structure, ran by the homosexuals, ran by the Democrat Party, your schools are poor and failing. And when I say poor, I do not mean that they are poor financially. As a matter of fact, the per pupil spending in these cities is off the charts, and quite often higher than the per pupil spending at Catholic and Christian schools. Yet your children do not receive the same outcomes, in spite of the fact that these schools spend a considerable amount more than what is spent in Catholic and private school, Christian schools per pupil. So they are failing you in the educational system in these Democrat blue cities. The infrastructure in these cities is decaying and less than desirable. These cities are not safe. These cities are filled with slums and ghettos and dilapidated housing structures. Yet they continue, leading up to every first Tuesday in November, to make all of these elaborate promises about how they are going to deliver you to this place that you desire to be delivered to. Yet they never come through with that promise. And they can't come through with that promise. Because if they were to come through with that promise, the gig would be up. If they were to deliver on those promises, the gig would be up. Because their whole political system on the left is built on victimhood and convincing you that you are a victim and that they are the savior. And if they ever came through and provided you with everything that they promised to provide you with, what would they then do at that point? What would their talking points be? How would they motivate and stimulate you to come to the polls every first Tuesday in November if they didn't have something to promise you? Because they actually delivered on what they were promising. They're never going to remove the hook. Because once they remove the hook, you can go to swimming on your own. And they don't want that. Because that means you will begin to think for yourself. That means you will begin to produce for yourself. That means that you will begin to acquire things for yourself. And not look for their assistance. And their assistance has proven to not be very good. Because as I previously stated, their assistance has led to poor, deplorable schools where kids aren't educated, they're indoctrinated. Their assistance has led to high crime their assistance has led to total dilapidation all across America's blue cities. And in these cities, there's not a Republican in sight, yet they blame the Republican for all of your shortcomings. Yet they blame the Republican for your poor and failing schools. Yet they blame the Republican for your bad neighborhoods. Yet they blame the Republican for the influx of illegals that are now competing with you for limited resources. And you don't seem to mind. And you know damn well that they're responsible for bringing them into your communities. And you don't seem to mind. Now, many of you are beginning to complain, but I know what you're going to do. Your response to everything that has been done to you and is currently being done to you by the left, which you support, is to go right back out and vote for them again the first Tuesday in November. Lord help us.
Now, what baffles me isn't just that secular academia dismisses the notion of God and operates with the assumption that he doesn't exist, but while exhorting this belief, seems like they invest countless dollars, resources, searching space for some intelligent, powerful being that placed them here on earth to tell them a purpose, a reason why they're here. By definition, wouldn't that be God?